Right now, you're on the verge of doing this big show about Samuel Steward.
Yeah. It's a story of a queer pioneer that, has previously, been sort of overlooked.
And in reality, he's kind of like Giant. His contributions to the bondage S&M scene.
Well, the
leather scene.
He's kind of one of those Zelig figures that was everywhere all the time with everyone, literally, sexually. Well, one of the most interesting things about him is that he kept records called the stud files. So everyone that he ever hooked up with,
he wrote notes about.
He wrote notes about
straight, queer, bi, everything.
Yes, everything,
including J. Edgar Hoover.
I don't think he's on the list, but we did have Rudolph Valentino, Thornton Wilder, the photographer George Platt Lynes. He hooked up with all of these amazing famous people, and it was all underground because nobody was really out. And then he also, because he was an English professor and a writer, was friends with Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas. And then he became a tattoo artist. He mentored some of the biggest names in tattooing.
And he was the tattoo artist for the Hells Angels.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why he ended up getting out of the tattoo business.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, and then he became the porn author Phil Andros later in his life when he lived here, when he lived in Oakland.
Wow.
And so he was one of the most important contributors to porn fiction because he was one of the first people who didn't pathologize homosexuality. He actually just wrote it as hot porn instead of back in the days of Pulp Fiction they would always everybody got drunk and killed themselves because they were gay.
But
meanwhile, you could jerk off before you got to that part.
Right, you got all the dirty stuff, and then they got punished in the end. And
even straight people veer over into queer porn after a while because it gets boring,
Oh, do they?
Well, yeah, take it from me. I'm sort of an ambassador between the two worlds, It's a lot more fun if you got flexibility.
Well, and also, Phil Andros or Samuel Stewart was best friends with Alfred Kinsey.
Yeah, I'm playing Gertrude Stein and Alfred Kinsey in this show. Which is so perfect for me, it's insane. I think he died in 93, but he was born in 09. And so he was really active all during the time when you could be put in prison or murdered or whatever.
Yeah.
Most likely if you were out. So he had such an incredibly rich experience.
Yeah.
And didn't give up anything and never was really fully out. So he's really an important figure in queer history. Sam, he had, so many partners. But one of his regular partners was a woman named Emmy Curtis.
Yeah.
And so she's a figure in the show as well. So, nobody is... You can't categorize or stereotype anyone. This amazing queer pioneer who had sex with all these amazing famous people and made all these contributions had a long-term relationship with a straight woman.
Nice.
Sexual.
And tickets for the show at Counterpulse?
Counterpulse.
Yeah.
Yes, Counterpulse.
HOMOPHILE.
Counterpulse.org for tickets. The show is called HOMOPHILE. And it's a really amazing multimedia. There's shadow puppets fucking each other.
No, I saw the preview.
It's really amazing. It's
things are spinning off the ceiling.
Yeah, it's a total multimedia, interdisciplinary extravaganza based on one of the most interesting people you'll ever hear about.